narrowing it down to make it more concise. Okay, because you want to be able to pass off the chart to someone else, and without ever talking to you or ever having seen the patient, they can continue on with the program right away. Okay, and it's a reminder to yourself, because if you see 25 patients in one day, there's no way you're going to remember what exactly you did with one patient 3 days from then, when now you've seen 60 patients. Okay, so you're writing it down for your own benefit as well. Okay, so everything you do should be dated. You always start with the date. And you got to make sure whatever you're documenting in, whether it's electronic or written, has the patient's name on it. Okay, so subjective, we're writing down what the patient reports. Now, the patient comes into clinic and you say, how are you? And they'll be like, good, fine. That's not what you're writing. You gotta actually ask them questions to get information that you want. So what sort of subjective information do we want to get from the patient? What do we want to ask them? About their pain. Okay, we're treating them for pain. We need to ask them about how their pain is.
Where they feel limited.
What? Pain. So, do you have pain? Yes, I have pain. I'm here because I have pain. Okay, we might want to rate the amount of pain. And are we asking them about pain right then and there, or pain since we last saw them?
Yeah, pain there.
Both. Okay, we care about their pain that day because that's going to affect what we do with them that day. But we more care about what happened at home because that's what we're working on improving. Okay, so pain since we last saw them too. Okay, what else do we want to know besides pain? Besides pain.
Did they eat? Have they slept?
Functionality.
Function. Function is actually what we want to focus on the most. So an even better question is, besides, so you could ask, what activities did you have pain with since we last saw you? Or you could say, what were you able to do this week that you weren't able to do last week?
Limitations.
Okay, so focusing on the functional activities and focusing on the positive of what they can accomplish versus what they can't do is what you want to lean towards. Yes, we have to know about what their deficits are too, but we really, for our patient's psychologic benefit, we want to get them to focus on the positive and what they can do versus what they can't do. So yes, we do need to ask about pain, but it's more important to ask about function. Last time you said you were having difficulty grabbing the cereal box off the top of the fridge. Were you able to do that this week? Okay, what other subjective information do we want?
Again, I say back to function, just how has it affected what you can and cannot do? Have you noticed any change in your...
Yes, so we want to know about change, because that's what we want to document. Not just, oh, well, you already know I have pain reaching overhead. It's how has it changed since last time?
What about medication?
I mean, unless it's going to affect their performance that day, it's not going to be on the top priority list of what to ask. It's probably consistent. We can ask about just generally how they're feeling that day. Did they get enough sleep? Do they feel sick? Because that's going to change the intensity of exercise that we do with them that day. What else do we think about? Our overall goal is to improve their function at home. So how are we accomplishing that? By treatments in the clinic and home exercise programs. You always, every single time, ask them how their home exercise went. Because A, you may need to make modifications, and B, you want to know if they really did it or not. And if they didn't, you need to change your approach with them. You got to get them to buy in, otherwise it won't work.
What if they just don't do it? No matter what
you got to figure out why.
Do they lie a lot and say they did when...
You can tell them someone's lying. Oh, show me.
First of all, they don't progress with the exercise.
Yeah, and if they're not progressing, that's a sign they're not doing it. So let's say I want someone to improve their functional ability to do a sit to stand. So I'm going to give them, let's say, butt taps, so there's a chair behind them, little squats to do at home. And I want them to do 3 sets of 10. No matter what I do, they won't do that. How can I still get their ability to do sit to stand to improve without giving them that exact exercise? Every time you stand up, do it with proper form and try to do it without upper extremity support. Because think about how many times you stand up and sit down during the day. So every time they do that functional activity, if they're focusing on form and doing it well, they're improving their ability to do it. Okay, so that's what when you talk about like lifestyle modification and you want to make it seem less like a homework assignment and more just part of their everyday movements.
Will that help them?
Yes.
I mean, if they only sit to stand maybe 4 times in a day.
So tell them to get up once an hour to go to the restroom because they probably should be drinking more water anyway.
Ooh, their homework exercise program is to just drink more water.
My dad is 79 now and he hates drinking water. Why do you hate drinking water? Because I don't want to have to go to the restroom. It's a very common geriatric complaint. Yes.
You gotta sit down on the toilet.
The second you're thirsty, you're already 2% dehydrated. 6% dehydration is life-threatening. Not a lot of wiggle room there.
Topic, but are you allowed by law to buy fruits or drinks, like as far as like juice to patients, take it to their home
If-
or whatever?
Well, no, you're not going to give them stuff for home.
Health, and I'm going to visit the patients at home, and I was wondering if you're allowed by law to take something with you, like foods or, you know, like.
You shouldn't. You should only have it for like emergency situations for like hypoglycemia and dehydration. Okay, but like if they'd have no source for water at home, like if they refuse to drink water from the faucet, which I do, 'cause I'm a water snob. LA water is disgusting. It's 4th worst in the country. No, but so you just have. If it's very low in dollar amount, that's fine. But in general, you want to stay away from that and use what they already have. And again, you don't want them to become dependent on you. You want to teach them to be self-reliant. So can your caregiver buy you more water and pour you a glass more often so that you drink it more often? Set an alarm on your phone to get up once an hour. Make sense? Okay, so we have a patient. Last week we did wall push-ups, remember? And squats. So what sort of injury? Someone's recovering from an injury and they could benefit from doing a wall push-up. What sort of injury diagnosis could benefit from a wall push-up? Rotator cuff tear. Facilitates joint congruency, joint compression. What does the rotator cuff have to do? Joint compression, stability. Okay, so we have a patient with a rotator cuff tear. What could be an example of what we ask them for subjective? Focusing on function.
How much more were they able to do compared to last time?
Okay, so what functional activities are patients with a rotator cuff tear going to have difficulty doing? Reaching overhead. So, for example, you could say patient reports they were able to reach higher overhead with their right upper extremity.
Because you're tall.
Everything's on account.
Okay, so in subjective, you want to use patient language for the most part. Okay, you're not going to use PT language. You're going to use patient language. You're going to try to directly quote them as much as possible. Okay, so patient reports that they were able to reach higher overhead with the right upper extremity than last week. So we're commenting on how they've improved, and we're commenting on what functional activity.
Should we put quotation marks?
If you're directly quoting them, you do, but I doubt they said right upper extremity. Okay, so it's okay to use a little bit of PT language, but for the most part, you want to use exactly what they said. Patient reports. Never, ever, 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 ever write complain. Patients don't complain. Positive, patient-friendly language only. Think about it. Every patient has the ability to request every piece of documentation about themselves. So if you'd be embarrassed to have the patient read it, don't write it. You write facts only, patient-friendly language. Patients don't complain, which means you're not going to use this abbreviation for complains of.
What about for pain?
Nope. They report pain. They state how much pain they have. They don't complain about it. You can say stated, reports, but they're not complaining. Nothing negative. Complain is negative. You could say the patient was crying while reporting the pain. You can write out facts.
I wasn't crying. I shot with his patient.
But patients do not complain. Everyone remember what this stands for? With. What's without? No, no W's. Con, sin. With, without. No W slash, not medically approved.
Why is that?
S.
It's not Latin. That's an S with a line over it.
What if they report, like, say they, like, break their arm or something and did, like, a beach exercise, and then they're like, oh, yeah, my arm feels a little better, like, now, like, my back hurts or something?
Yep,
it's
they reported that.
What would you do to, like...
Well, then you don't want to reassess how they're doing that because they're probably not doing it with proper form.
Is that Spanish when sin y con?
It's Latin.
Sin y con.
But yes, con and sin is Latin. It's okay, what are we documenting in the objective?
Everything that we've,
Everything that you did with them. Exactly how you did it. So that someone can read it and do the exact same thing next time. Okay, so right now, like I said, I want you to focus on having almost too much detail versus too little detail. And you can make objective a list, and often in electronic documentation, it is a list or a checkoff. Okay, so we could say our first exercise that we did was the wall push-up. So how would we document doing a wall push-up?
Wall push-up, 3 sets of 10.
Wall push-up. Let's say we did 2 sets of 8. What else do I want to specify?
How far from the wall?
How far from the wall? Why?
So you can document it.
Because that gives you an indication of intensity. So we could say with feet, 2 feet from the wall. One line is foot, 2 inches. One line can also mean minute or seconds. I know. But it wouldn't make any sense with feet 2 minutes from the wall.
just depends on the context of how you're writing.
Think about the context. Like it took them 2 minutes to get their feet to touch the wall. Okay, now if it doesn't say anything else after that, it's usually safe to assume that they had proper form and no pain. If they had pain, I could say something like, had to stop after 8 secondary to pain. That would be helpful information for the next person who's going to work with them. Okay, we also did a squat. So, how do we decide how hard or how intense a squat is?
How high they go down.
Okay, so base of support, but then how far they go down. Okay, so I mentioned earlier it's called a butt tap where you have like a surface behind and they have to tap it and come up. You could even do it with this because sometimes that's low enough to be a challenge. And that's a great way to measure intensity. You measure the height of the surface that they're tapping. So we could say squats, and I'm going to specify without upper extremity support. To a 21-inch surface, 3 sets of 9.
That S means without.
Yeah.
That means without. And again, if I don't specify base of support, the understanding is that it's a normal base of support. Okay, so and that's a great external cue for them as well of how low to go. So at home, you could say, okay, do it off the edge of your bed. Beds tend to be higher. Or do it from a chair. Chairs tend to be lower. Or put a couple pillows on a chair. Raise it up. Anyone know what average chair height is?
32 inches.
17 to 19 inches. Is your average chair height. And toilet.
We should know that from the wheelchair.
Okay, so 21 inches, a little easier. Yep, wheelchairs are around 16. Standard chair height. Okay, there's our objective. We did 2 things with them. How do we document a home exercise program?
Can.
So you got to make it clear that you didn't do the HEP with them, that you're giving it for home. So you could just write for home or for HEP. And then you want to specify exactly what you gave them. So often we're giving them a sheet to go home with, photocopy that exact thing and put it in the chart. So you can also say see attached sheet, which means that sheet that you gave them from home that you photocopied must be dated. Always date your home exercise program. And again, you're writing out more specifications. Do it next to a wall. Do it with a chair behind you. Do it holding on to the kitchen counter. Because you want to document that you told them exactly how to do it, so in case they do it wrong, you're covered. And just because you think something's obvious about the way someone should do it, they'll do something completely different. Okay, I've had patients where I've done the exercise with them in the clinic, wrote it down, showed them, and said, does this make sense to you? Can you repeat this? Yes. And they come back in, oh, show me how you've been doing it. And it's like something completely different. Okay, patients get confused. And with new technologies, there's like more like online resources where they can look online and actually see a video of it. You can always take a video of them doing it on their own phone. You have to ask them permission for that. Okay, the more feedback they have, the better performance they'll have.
Yeah, instead of giving me sheets, my PTA, once we did it in session, I would just put the information in my notes and just go from there.
Okay, but then he would still have to document what he gave you. Yeah, as long as you're sure that the patient is actually going to be able to access the information and repeat it at home, then you're good. Okay, what are we going to include in the assessment?
Results,
What you think.
progress,
What you see.
So this is exactly what we see.
progress.
We need to comment on progress or lack thereof. And we want to comment on
What
What
we're
you
planning
think?
to do.
maybe hypothesized reasons for either their good or not so good performance. But really what's most important is something commenting on progress. Did they perform the exercise better than last time? Okay, so this is exactly what you did. This is interpreting it.
Vitals going down.
Vitals are objective.
Also, what if you notice a patient has some marks on their body or something? Do you document it on assessment? Or
You document exactly what you see in objective.
So for assessment, it's the whether or not they do
Facts,
the work. Or
opinions.
Yours?
Ah.
Yours.
Opinions.
You are all going to be intelligent practitioners and have intelligent opinions. Okay, sometimes we just need to interpret the information. So what if last time we did 2 sets of 5? This time we did 2 sets of 8. What can we conclude?
Patient was able to do more.
Patients progress with.
Did the patient progress
Yes.
in their strength? Yeah, because they didn't fatigue till 8 versus fatiguing at 5. So patient demonstrates improved strength with wall push-up.
So
How did you determine that? Because the number of reps increased.
So then your assessment's basically just you're summarizing what they did in the objective or the exercises, whether they did bad, good, or they
Yeah, you're interpreting the information. You're drawing a conclusion. These are the facts. Draw a
But
conclusion.
in that example, you would have used objectives from the last session.
Your assessments have to be based on objective data.
Well, you just said they were able to do 2.
Yeah, and it can be
5.
objective data from last time.
Yeah.
Okay, because someone could look in the chart and look at both objectives and see that, but wouldn't you just rather have it written right here for you? And again, think about it. You're writing it down for yourself, too. You can remember what you did with your patient. Okay, so let's take that example. Let's say they did 2 sets of 5 the previous time. This time they were able to go to 8 before they fatigued. So we can say patient demonstrates improved strength with wall push-up. Because unless we saw them do a different activity, maybe that it carried over to, we can only comment on what we actually saw.
Do you write why you came to that conclusion, or you just write 2 objectives? You just write that. You don't have to write because they went.
You don't have to write
because
because.
they're blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Saying like if you got the number from 5 to 8, would you give them like 8 to do, or would you just have them do until they fatigue?
Did they the only reason you're going to 8 is because that means they fatigued at 8.
Okay, so
If they didn't
until-
fatigue at 8, then you should do more or make it harder.
Okay.
Okay, so let's do something where we're pointing out a deficit.
I was doing 3 and 10 of everything.
Yeah, no.
I never fatigued.
Yeah.
3 and 10.
You guys are going to be awesome practitioners, not minimum practitioners.
He said, during the exercise, right?
Sorry, say that again?
You can also add pain level.
Yes,
during
but
the
that
exercise.
also can just be an observation. But you could say, let's say, for example, had to stop at 8 repetitions